Hey everyone, today is the last day of round 4 for G Fuel Code Madness, so if you want to help increase the chances of me moving on to the next round, be sure to use code IMMORTAL on literally anything on the site. From a starter pack to a shaker tub, any code use helps get us one step closer to ultimately getting that custom shaker cup. Anyways, on to today's video. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings, salutations, how art thou? Welcome back to the channel. Threw a bit of a curveball at you there, I know. Obviously, Warzone is brand new. It is right about a week old at this point, and there's still a lot to learn about the mode in general. You know, things ranging from the backstory of the world to the best strats in game and everything in between, right? But throughout my hours of playtime so far, I think I have acquired enough knowledge about the basic do's and don'ts to really break down a handful of mistakes you could be making. So today we're doing just that. If you enjoyed the video at any point, or if you just find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you're new here, we've got the latest Warzone news, intel, and other information going up on the channel each and every day. So feel free to subscribe to stay up to date with all of that stuff. Anyways, since Warzone is obviously free to play, you may be jumping into it without any past experience in Call of Duty Modern Warfare, or you may just be brand new to the mode itself. Which, while it does share a lot of things with multiplayer, it definitely does not feel the same at its core, which is why just by fixing a few simple mistakes, you could be playing a lot better. So right away, one of the most common comments I get, I like how that sounded. Anyways, one of the most common comments I get is, Zach, why don't you ever use FMJ on your classes? It's something I've never really featured in any of my multiplayer class setups, and in my best drop kits video from last week, I also avoided using it. Now, here's the thing. Yes, on the stat bar in-game, FMJ does increase the damage. However, that is a little deceiving, because FMJ is only increasing the damage consistency through walls and other penetrable objects, alongside damage to streaks, vehicles, and also equipment. So this means that no, FMJ is not going to make your weapon do more damage when you're shooting at Timmy No Thumbs across the field where you're at. Bullets won't be dealing more damage with FMJ equipped. It is the same exact damage as before, just with increased penetration consistency. Now, the devs did say that on vehicles, streaks, and also equipment, FMJ will be more effective in terms of damage. But most of the time, that's not the real reason people are using FMJ, so just don't be confused by that. FMJ does not deal more damage. Now, the next basic BR mistake that really applies to any game like this is going to be your movement. As a wise ninja once said, I'm not seeing enough movement. And basically, when it comes down to it, in Warzone, you do need to stay moving. And this applies to basically everything. Seeing as we do have 150 players and the map is pretty massive, there could always be a team or even just a single player that might be watching you and just waiting for the right moment to strike. And the second you run up to a weapon stash or a drop kit, or even just to stop and scratch your nose, that's when your secret admirer is going to strike and potentially down you. So obviously, moving from location to location is going to be ideal. You gotta be smart about that though, and we'll talk about positioning here momentarily. But even when you are just chilling with your squad in a building, simply running in a small circle or walking back and forth is going to make you a harder target to hit than if you were just simply standing still. I know it might sound really basic, but trust me, if it didn't work, it would not be a universal tip for literally every single battle royale. Then, getting into the next mistake you might be making, there are certain buildings around the map that could be very easily overlooked, right? And that could ultimately cost you some nice loot or some other stuff like ammo refills, for instance, as one of the best buildings to loot is going to be the police stations, as they have some good stash spawns, floor loot, and also an ammo resupply box in them as well. So make sure you're not overlooking those, and also fire stations are another pretty decent place to loot too, as they can have buy stations in them alongside stashes and ground loot, plus they do also give you some height as well via the tower, and you can't really ever go wrong with that. Now, without a doubt, the most important thing you can do here in Warzone is pay attention to your positioning, because positioning is crucial in a lot of situations, honestly. The mistake that many players make is giving up their good positioning or just not paying attention to it at all in the first place. So one of the biggest advantages you can give yourself is going to be the high ground. This is oftentimes important in really any battle royale, and in Warzone it is basically the same deal. Having the high ground gives you the most options that players beneath you won't necessarily have when it comes to positioning, rotations, reviving, etc., etc. And those are all going to help give you the upper hand in any given kind of engagement. So when you can take the high ground, it is definitely worth going for. But also alongside that, positioning yourself to succeed later on into the game is going to be pretty important as well. So this means preparing for your rotations before the storm is chasing you down, limiting the amount of angles you can be shot from by placing yourself in a spot where your back is more covered, and in all things of that nature, as those will also increase your chances of making it later on into the match itself, as well as just having a better chance to engage with confidence. Now, since we are on the topic of positioning, as I mentioned, preparing for future zones is a really important thing to do in this game especially, because that gas hits super hard and will knock you down incredibly fast. So another mistake that players often make is ignoring the intel drops and missions that you can activate. Those secure the intel missions, where you have to spend a chunk of time basically capturing like a headquarters essentially, do allow you to see where the future zones are going to be. And the more intel locations you do secure, the more future zones you are going to be able to see on the map as well. So I guess this is sort of a knowledge is power kind of situation, and thus make sure you are not ignoring those intel missions when you see them. Continuing on though, the next mistake that a lot of players make, including myself from time to time, is spending too much time looting. Sometimes, you just get into the zone of grabbing cash and ammo and equipment and all sorts of that good stuff. And then by the time the zone is ready to come in, you realize you are not at all prepared to make that rotation, or you're just not able to utilize any of the loot you got because of where you're at in relation to the enemies or the buy stations or whatever else it may be. Also, not to mention, we have the buy stations, you can get the essentials from them if need be, and thus looting up on cash should definitely be a priority, but other items can kind of be an afterthought at some points in the game, pending your location and how busy it might be where you're at. In the end though, the less time you spend looting, and the more time you go into engagements ready to fight, the more comfortable you are ultimately going to be in gunfights, and that is what really leads to victory. Now, of course, we just brought up the buy stations, and there is also a mistake you could be making here, as there are certain things you should prioritize buying, and others that maybe are not super crucial. So in order of importance, here's how I would rank the current buy stations. Number 1, the loadout drop. That's obviously going to give you your custom class. That should be your number 1 all the time, unless of course you have a free one in close proximity to you. Then number 2, the self-revive kit. Number 3, the UAV. Number 4, the armor plates. Number 5, the gas mask. Number 6, the airstrike. Number 7, the cluster strike. Number 8, the munitions box. And number 9, the shield turret. Really, I see no reason to ever buy the shield turrets unless you're just willing to throw out some money because you want to flex or something. That's a pretty useless buy if I do say so myself. But of course, those numbers will change depending on your situation. Sometimes you are going to need armor more than anything else, and obviously that'll then be number 1. But usually that is how I would put the buy options, like I said, in order of importance. Then, finally, the last mistake you might be making is simply not using a suppressor. We have the monolithic suppressor available on basically every major weapon in the game, and that is going to ultimately hide you from the minimap because of that suppression aspect. Then it will also increase your range as well. So that's basically a win-win there. So definitely make sure you are always using a suppressor, because at this point, there's really no reason not to. Obviously, if you don't have one equipped, every time you shoot, you are going to appear on the minimap, and then anyone who is close to you is going to immediately have the upper hand against you, because they're going to know right where you're at. So the suppressor is a quick and simple counter to that situation ever happening. Anyways, with all of that being said, those are effectively some of the major mistakes that you might be making here in Warzone, and that is going to wrap things up for today. If you guys enjoyed the video, or if you just found it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you're new here, and you want to stay up to date with the latest Call of Duty news and intel, updates and leaks, and everything else in between, feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. That way you'll always know when I post a new video. As I mentioned earlier, Round 4 of G Fuel Code Madness is coming to a close tonight, so if you want to help me get one step closer to being in the semifinals, be sure to use code WhosImmortal at checkout to get 30% off your order on basically everything available. But once again, thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.